Noah's deck in Virtual World may seem a bit all over the place at first. Against Kaiba, he's focused on the Arc, and then when Yugi is able to take down Shinato, he turns to Spirit Monsters. In actuality though, these strategies are true to Noah in every way, incorporating aspects of his name by referencing Noah's Arc, and showcasing a lineup of Spirit Monsters that are true to his disembodied state. In the real life game though, Shinato has only received a print as a ritual monster with its accompanying ritual spell, and the Spirit Monsters, while they have received support for their monster class from time to time, are largely remembered for a couple of members, Yata-Garasu and Tsukuyomi, as opposed to any deck that explicitly featured them. Let's change that. The premise of this deck is to tie Shinato and the spirits together. Shinato serves as the deck master of sorts, acting as the boss of the deck, but also facilitating the spirit aspect of the deck as well. As for the existing support, like I mentioned, Shinato doesn't have an archetype, but if we tie it into the spirit class, we need to consider what's out there for spirits. As this is a class of monster, it's not necessarily an archetype in the way that toons are, for example, being both a class and an archetype. And as of now, there's only one archetype that involves spirit monsters, the Shino archetype, which coincidentally also revolves around rituals. But just to give a quick rundown of some of the spirit support out there, Aratama searches for a spirit monster on normal summon, Nikitama on normal summon gives you an extra normal of a spirit monster, Sakitama can be revealed in hand to immediately normal summon a spirit monster, and Amano Iwato prevents any monsters from activating their effects except spirit monsters. There is some additional support out there, most of which is either bad and or outdated, so it's these 4 monsters that I kept in mind in designing the Shinato Spirit custom support. Starting off the monster lineup is Noah the Guide. When this card is normal summon, you can place one Shinato Pendulum monster from your deck or extra deck in your Pendulum zone. Yes, this deck will feature Pendulum monsters. Also has a standard spirit effect. During the end phase of the turn, it was normal summon or flip face up, it returns to the hand. Now we get into the Shinato card, starting off with the Xyz Pendulum Arc of Shinato, a scale 3 that has the pendulum effect where tributes are not required for the normal summon of your spirit monsters. The spirit monsters have a lot of high level monsters that have great effects, such as Dark Dust Spirit, Yamada Dragon, Hino Kagasushi, and some other ones out there, so you don't have to tribute for any of them. Also has the effect that your opponent cannot target Shinato ritual monsters you control with card effects. Its monster effect is that it is Xyz summoned with 2 level 4 spirit monsters, and that anytime a monster is sent from the field to the grave, you attach it to this card as material instead. When your opponent targets this card with an effect or an attack, you detach 1 material from this card, and this is mandatory to negate that effect or attack. So these effects are of course references to how the Deckmaster Arc of Shinato works in Virtual World, where any of Kaiba's monsters, instead of going to the grave, aboard the Arc instead, and then anytime Kaiba tries to attack the Arc, a monster that is aboard the Arc is summoned instead, taking the attack. This card has the additional effect where you can detach 3 materials from this card. So obviously this card is summoned using 2, but thanks to its effect you can collect more. And if you do have 3, you can detach 3. Place this card in your Pendulum zone, then ritual summon 1 Shinato ritual monster from your hand or deck, then you can activate 1 Great Flood from your deck. So since it goes through the Pendulum zone through its effect, it grants the Shinato ritual monster you just summoned with targeting prevention, and of the Shinato ritual monsters you can summon, it can be the OG Shinato King of a higher plane, as well as a retrained version, and that is Shinato, Ruler of the Spirit Realm. The Ruler of the Spirit Realm is a ritual pendulum that has a pendulum effect where once per turn, immediately after this effect resolves, you can normal summon 1 spirit monster from your hand. So since all the spirit monsters have that clause that they can't be special summoned, the deck isn't very good at swarming, and that is why cards like Nikitama and Sakitama have ways to grant you additional normal summons, and so this card adds to that, granting the deck 3 ways to normal summon additional spirit monsters for the turn. Also has the effect that during the end phase of a spirit monster you control will return to the hand or deck, you can return 1 other card you control to the hand instead. There are a number of use cases for this effect, such as being able to keep out the spirit monsters that require resources to summon, such as the tribute monsters, as well as keeping out the monsters on board that have good effects that you want to keep out, such as Amano Iwato has the effect to turn off any monster effects except the effects of spirit monsters. You normal summon him, place the Ruler of the Spirit Realm in your Pendulum zone, and then during the end phase, instead of bouncing Amano, you bounce Shinato instead, allowing you to turn off all your opponent's monster effects. As for the ruler's monster effects, must be ritual summoned by the effect of Shinato's Arc Embark, so that is going to be the retrain of the original ritual spell. Any monster sent to the grave is banished instead, so turning the field into macrocosmos. When this card destroys a monster by battle, have your opponent's life points, then gain life points equal to your opponent's life points, so a souped up version of the effect of the original Shinato monster. And then finally, if this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place it in your pendulum zone instead, but banish it when it leaves the field. This last effect is a callback to how when Yugi is about to win the duel by destroying Shinato, which is Noah's deckmaster, Noah instead retreats Shinato back to the deckmaster position behind him. But when he does, he can't bring it back out as a monster, and that is captured how it would be banished when it leaves the field. And that is also why this Shinato and Arc of Shinato are pendulum monsters, because they sort of function as deckmaster of sorts, where you can place it in your pendulum zone to grant you deckmaster-like abilities, but then you can also summon it as a monster with its own different suite of effects. Starting off the spells is that retrained ritual spell, and that is Shinato's Arc Embarks. This card can be used to ritual summon Shinato, ruler of the spirit realm. You must also tribute monsters from your hand or field and or banish spirit monsters from your grave, whose total levels exactly equal 8. If a spirit monster you control will be returned to the hand or deck, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. So another way to turn off that pesky return to the hand effect, particularly if you want to keep a spirit monster on board. Next is the Searcher of the Deck Virtual Spirit, allowing you to add one spirit monster from your deck or grave to your hand. But during the turn it's activated, if the added monster or a monster with the same original name would return from the field to your hand, shuffle it into the deck instead. So this is why cards like Shinato's Arc Embarks and Ruler of the Spirit Realm specify that if a spirit monster will return to your hand or deck, because a card like Virtual Spirit, as well as another one you're about to see, have lingering effects that will return your monsters to the deck instead, so ways to turn those off. Next up is Spirit Exchange, a quick play spell that allows you to target a spirit monster on the field, return it to the deck, then special summon one spirit monster from your deck with a different name from the returned monster, ignoring its summoning conditions. So ignoring because none of the spirit monsters can otherwise be special summoned. During the end phase of the turn this card was activated, return the monster summoned by this effect to the deck, then you can return one monster your opponent controls to the hand. So this card, to put it mildly, is great. It allows you to toolbox your deck for whichever spirit monster you need, since so many of them have great effects, whether that be Hinokagu to discard your opponent's hand, Yamato Dragon to draw a bunch of cards, Yata to kill your opponent's draw, or Amato to turn off non-spirit monster effects. And then that lingering effect, it can be turned off with a card like Shinato's Arc Embarks Graveyard effect, or Ruler of the Spirit Realm's Pendulum effect, but even if you don't, it can get rid of your opponent's threats in a non-targeting, non-destruction manner. Next up, we have Spirit Draw, a quick play spell that you can only activate if you control a spirit monster. Then at that point, it has a lingering effect where during the end phase of the turn it was activated, you draw cards equal to the number of cards returned to the hand or deck this turn. You can only activate one Spirit Draw per turn. So this card is like the super rejuvenation of the deck. Now, I don't think you'll be able to abuse it the way that, say, Dragon Rulers abuse super rejuvenation, but being able to net a +1, +2, maybe even more during the end phase of the turn is great nonetheless. And finally, we have the card mentioned on Arc of Shinato, and that is Great Flood, a field spell that is sent to the grave if you do not control a Shinato monster. So that would be your Arc or either of your two rituals. Spirit monsters can be pendulum summoned, ignoring their summoning conditions, so those pendulums aren't just in there to proxy deck masters, but you can even swarm the field with spirits from your hand. But this card's greater effect is the fitting floodgate of sorts, and referencing how Noah's Ark had 2 of every animal, where each player can only perform each of the following actions up to twice per turn. Summon a monster, so both players can only summon 2 monsters per turn. Activate a monster effect, so both players can only activate 2 monster effects per turn. And activate a spell or trap card, so both players can only activate up to 2 spells and traps per turn. So again, spirit monsters aren't the spammiest, and this card allows you to slow down the pace of the duel to take advantage of the control aspects of the deck. So let's go through some combos, the first of which was mentioned a bit earlier. We can combine Amano Iwato, a monster that would otherwise return to your hand during the end phase, but while it's up, monsters cannot activate their effects except spirit monsters. So instead of returning it to your end phase, what you can do instead is activate Shinato to rule the spirit realm as a pendulum, and then during the end phase, when a monster would return to the hand or deck a spirit monster, you can return another card on the field instead, so we can return back Shinato, end our turn, and now on our opponent's turn, unless they happen to run spirit monsters, they won't be able to activate any monster effects. The cool thing about this combo is that both of these pieces are very easily searchable. Amano Iwato can be searched out by Virtual Spirit and Aratama, and then Shinato can be searched out by any card that searches out a ritual monster, as well as Noah the guide. Another combo is working with Spirit Exchange to again toolbox your deck into whichever spirit monster you need. So say you summon Dark Dust Spirit, Dark Dust when its normal summon destroys all other face-up monsters on the field, so you can clear the way to attack. And then during that battle phase, you can swap out Dark Dust Spirit to bring out something else that can deal some damage to your opponent and get its effect off, whether that be Hinokaga Sushi to get rid of your opponent's hand, Yamada Dragon to replenish your own hand, or Yata-Garasu to soft lock your opponent out of their draw phase. And then finally, we have the ability to easily go into the Xyz of the deck, so summoning Aratama can get you a spirit monster from your deck. We can search out Sakatama. Sakatama can be revealed in hand to immediately normal summon a spirit monster. We can summon itself. And now we've got 2 level 4 spirit monsters that we can Xyz into Arc of Shinato. This works especially well against any deck that relies on sending monsters from field to grave to activate their effects. So they would be attached to the Arc instead as material. And once you have 3, you can detach 3 to place this card in your Pendulum Zone and ritual summon Shinato from your extra deck, and then activate Great Flood from your deck. So this is now going to essentially floodgate the opponent in a variety of ways. First, Shinato will banish any monsters sent to the graveyard. Second, Great Flood will make it so that each player can only summon 2 monsters per turn, activate 2 monster effects per turn, and activate up to 2 spells and traps per turn. So those are some go-to combos with the Shinato Spirit custom archetype. So that does it for the Shinato Spirit custom support. Hope you enjoyed, and be sure to like and subscribe for next week. Yeah, I'm pretty relentless about getting these showcases out on a weekly basis. Yes, you could say I'm on a roll.